Have you ever met someone whose mind never seems to stop? Someone who notices small details other people miss. Someone who stays quiet in a room, but somehow understands more than they say. Someone who thinks before speaking, questions what others accept quickly, and seems calm on the outside while their mind is processing everything at once. At first, this may look like overthinking. It may look like anxiety. It may look like social distance, emotional sensitivity, or difficulty relaxing. But psychology suggests something more interesting. In people with extremely high IQs, the mind often does not process the world in a simple or automatic way. It processes in layers. It connects ideas. It compares patterns. It predicts outcomes. It analyzes tone, behavior, intention, risk, meaning, and consequence. And this is where the psychology of people with extremely high IQs becomes fascinating. Because a very high IQ is not only about solving problems faster or knowing more information, it can change the way a person experiences reality. People with extremely high IQs may not simply see what is happening. They may see what caused it, what it could become, what is missing, what does not make sense, and what other people are not noticing. This is one reason why people with extremely high IQs are often misunderstood. Their intelligence does not always look obvious. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like hesitation. Sometimes it looks like boredom. Sometimes it looks like self-doubt. Sometimes it looks like emotional intensity. But underneath those behaviors, there is often a mind working with much more complexity than people can see. One common trait of people with extremely high IQs is the need for solitude. Not because they dislike people, not because they are cold, not because they think they are better than others, but because social environments are full of information, facial expressions, tone of voice, body language, hidden tension, emotional shifts, contradictions between what someone says and what they actually seem to feel. Most people pass through these details quickly, but people with extremely high IQs may absorb much more of them. They may notice the pause before an answer, the small change in someone's energy, the discomfort behind a joke, the tension underneath a casual conversation, and after a while, this becomes exhausting. So when people with extremely high IQs need to be alone, they are not always escaping life. Sometimes they are recovering from how much their mind has been processing. Solitude becomes a way to regulate the brain, a way to return to silence, a way to organize everything that entered. This is why they may feel tired after social interaction, even when nothing bad happened. They were not just talking. They were observing, analyzing, adjusting, reading the room, and holding back thoughts that were too complex for the moment. Another trait of people with extremely high IQs is that their mind rarely feels fully off. Even when they are resting, something keeps moving inside. A conversation comes back. A problem rearranges itself. A new idea connects to an old memory. A possible future appears. A decision gets reviewed from another angle. This is not always intentional. It often happens automatically. People with extremely high IQs may experience thinking as a constant background process. Their brain is not only reacting to life, it is modeling it, trying to predict it, trying to understand it, trying to make sense of it. This can create creativity, insight, and problem-solving ability, but it can also make rest difficult, because a mind that connects everything may struggle to leave anything unfinished. That is why people with extremely high IQs can feel mentally tired even when their body has done very little. The fatigue comes from invisible processing, too many unfinished thoughts, too many possibilities, too many questions without closure. And when someone says, "Just stop thinking about it," they may not understand that. For some people, thinking is not just an activity. It is the way their mind tries to create safety, meaning, and control. There is also an emotional side that many people do not expect. People often imagine that those with extremely high IQs are cold, detached, or purely logical. But many people with extremely high IQs feel things very deeply. They may be moved by beauty, by injustice, by emotional dishonesty, by music, by human suffering, by a memory, by one sentence that explains something they have carried for years. The reason this emotional depth is often missed is that they may learn to hide it. They may look controlled because their inner world is intense. They may seem rational because analysis is how they manage emotion, but that does not mean they feel less. Sometimes they think so much because they feel so much. The mind tries to organize what the heart cannot easily carry. And this is one of the most misunderstood parts of people with extremely high IQs. Their analysis is not always emotional distance. Sometimes it is emotional protection. They analyze because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. They search for explanations because emotion without structure can feel overwhelming. They try to understand people because not understanding them feels unsafe. Another important trait is intellectual humility. This may sound strange because many people assume that high intelligence creates arrogance, but genuine intelligence often does the opposite. People with extremely high IQs usually understand how much they do not know. They see the gaps. They see the exceptions. They see the limits of simple answers. They know that reality is rarely as obvious as it looks. So when people with extremely high IQs say, "I don't know," it is not always insecurity. Sometimes it is precision. They know that a confident answer is not always a correct answer. They know that certainty can be dangerous when it is not supported by understanding. And because they see more layers, they may be slower to form strong conclusions. They ask themselves, "What am I missing? Is there another explanation? Is this evidence or just emotion? Could the opposite also be true?" This can make them appear hesitant, but what looks like hesitation may actually be depth. People with extremely high IQs are often more interested in being accurate than in sounding certain. And in a world that rewards quick opinions, this can make them feel out of place. People with extremely high IQs also tend to observe more than they say. In groups, they may stay quiet longer than expected. They may watch before participating. They may listen not only to words, but to what those words are hiding. They notice who interrupts, who avoids eye contact, who changes the subject, who seems confident but is actually defensive, who agrees with words but disagrees emotionally. This kind of observation is not passivity, it is active intelligence. They are collecting information before they speak. They are mapping the room. But because they are quiet, others may underestimate them. And that is one of the strange things about intelligence. The person who talks the most is not always the person who understands the most. Sometimes the deepest mind in the room is the one saying the least, not because they have nothing to say, but because they are deciding what is actually worth saying. People with extremely high IQs may also struggle to find conversations that truly satisfy them. This does not mean they dislike small talk completely, but over time, shallow interaction can feel empty. They may crave depth, questions that lead somewhere, ideas that can be explored, people who are willing to think beyond the obvious. For people with extremely high IQs, connection is not only emotional, it is intellectual. They may feel close to someone when that person can follow their thoughts, when they do not have to simplify every idea, when they do not have to hide their curiosity, when they do not have to pretend to be less intense than they are, and when they cannot find that, they may adapt. They speak less. They simplify themselves. They hide parts of their mind. They become socially acceptable but internally alone. This is why people with extremely high IQs can know many people and still feel misunderstood. They may not lack social ability. They may lack spaces where their full mind can exist. Another common pattern is boredom. People with extremely high IQs can become bored faster than the people around them. Not because they are ungrateful, not because they think they are better, but because their mind often needs novelty, challenge, and complexity to stay engaged. Repetition can feel mentally suffocating. Predictable conversations can feel draining. Tasks with no room for creativity or problem solving can feel almost painful. The brain wants a question, a pattern, a challenge, a door that has not been opened yet. This is why people with extremely high IQs may have many interests. They may dive deeply into one subject, understand its structure, and then suddenly feel pulled towards something new. They are not always inconsistent. Sometimes their mind is searching for the next level of complexity. Once one pattern is understood, the brain wants another. But this can make ordinary life difficult, because much of life requires repetition, routines, small tasks, slow progress, responsibilities that are necessary but not stimulating. The challenge for people with extremely high IQs is not intelligence itself. It is learning how to stay present in a world that often feels too slow for the mind. There is also a painful pattern many people with extremely high IQs recognize. They may procrastinate hardest on the work that matters most. This seems contradictory. If someone is highly intelligent, shouldn't they start easily? Not always. People with extremely high IQs often see the full complexity of a task before they begin. They can imagine the ideal version. They can see every possible flaw. They can predict criticism. They can compare the real result to the perfect version in their mind. And because the mind already sees how good something could be, starting imperfectly can feel uncomfortable. This is not always laziness. Sometimes it is complexity awareness. They are not avoiding the work because it does not matter. They are avoiding it because it matters too much. The idea in the mind feels powerful, but the first attempt in reality may feel small and incomplete. So they wait, they plan, they think, they delay. But the truth is, some things can only be understood by beginning. Thinking can prepare you, but action teaches what thinking alone cannot. A brilliant idea that never begins becomes pressure. A project that never starts becomes a quiet burden. And the only way out is to begin before it feels perfect. Another deep trait in people with extremely high IQs is self-doubt. Again, this surprises people. They imagine that intelligence creates confidence, but often, people with extremely high IQs doubt themselves because they see too much. They know how many things can go wrong. They know how much they still do not know. They know how easily people confuse opinion with truth. So their doubt is not always weakness. Sometimes it is the result of depth. Simple minds may feel certain quickly because they see fewer variables. Complex minds hesitate because they see many. That is why people with extremely high IQs may question their own thoughts more than others expect. They replay decisions, review conversations, challenge assumptions, reconsider conclusions, and hold themselves to standards they would never demand from anyone else. From the outside, this can look like insecurity, but inside, it may be a mind trying to be honest, trying not to deceive itself, trying not to become arrogant, trying not to confuse intelligence with being right all the time. And this is important. People with extremely high IQs can still be wrong. They can overthink. They can misread situations. They can get trapped in their own analysis. But what often makes them different is their willingness to examine their own thinking, to update, to revise, to admit uncertainty, to change their mind when better evidence appears. They may treat beliefs as temporary models, not fixed identities. They are not always attached to being right. They are attached to getting closer to what is true. And that ability is one of the clearest signs of psychological maturity. But all of this can create a quiet sense of not belonging. People with extremely high IQs may feel slightly out of sync with the world around them. Not dramatically, not all the time, but in subtle ways. They may feel that conversations stop too early, that people accept easy answers too quickly, that social rules require too much pretending, that many environments reward confidence more than insight, that depth is treated as heaviness, that sensitivity is mistaken for weakness, that thinking differently can make a person feel alone, even in a crowded room. This sense of not belonging does not always come from rejection. Sometimes it comes from cognitive difference. When a person processes more, connects more, questions more, and feels more deeply, ordinary environments may not always give enough space for that inner complexity. So people with extremely high IQs may live with a divided experience. One part of them participates in normal life. The other part remains aware that they are experiencing things at a different level of detail. They notice more. They need more depth. They get tired by things others barely register. They are moved by things others pass over. They become bored by what others find comfortable. They become overwhelmed by what others call simple. And this can be both a gift and a burden. The same mind that sees possibilities can also see risks. The same mind that understands patterns can also get trapped in them. The same mind that feels beauty deeply can also feel pain deeply. The same mind that creates insight can also create loneliness. That is why people with extremely high IQs do not only need information, they need self-understanding. They need to know when thinking is helping and when it is becoming a loop. They need to understand the difference between reflection and rumination. Reflection creates clarity. Rumination creates exhaustion. Reflection moves toward a decision. Rumination repeats the same fear. Reflection organizes reality. Rumination keeps reopening the same wound. Many people with extremely high IQs suffer because their strength turns against them. The mind that was built to solve problems starts creating problems to solve. The mind that was built to find patterns starts searching for danger everywhere. The mind that was built to imagine possibilities starts living in futures that have not happened. So the goal is not to become less intelligent. It is not to stop thinking deeply. The goal is to learn how to carry a powerful mind without being consumed by it. People with extremely high IQs may need to remember that not every thought deserves attention. Not every question needs an answer today. Not every uncertainty is a threat. Not every emotion has to be analyzed immediately. Not every silence means something is wrong. And not every possibility needs to be controlled. Sometimes the most intelligent thing a person can do is return to the present, to the body, to the breath, to the next action, to what is real right now. Because intelligence without grounding can become a storm, but intelligence with awareness can become direction. People with extremely high IQs are not just people who know more. They are often people who experience more layers of reality at once. They process more, connect more, feel more, question more, notice more, and sometimes carry more. That is why their behavior is so often misunderstood. Their solitude may not be rejection, it may be recovery. Their silence may not be emptiness, it may be observation. Their doubt may not be weakness, it may be precision. Their boredom may not be arrogance, it may be a need for depth. Their procrastination may not be laziness, it may be fear of reducing a powerful vision into an imperfect reality. And their emotional intensity may not be fragility, it may be the cost of perceiving life with fewer filters. So if you recognize yourself in this, maybe the question is not, what is wrong with me? Maybe the better question is, what does my mind need in order to function well? Maybe it needs quiet. Maybe it needs challenge. Maybe it needs honest conversation. Maybe it needs rest. Maybe it needs a project worthy of its depth. Maybe it needs to stop turning every thought into a trial. And maybe it needs permission to begin before everything is perfect. Because people with extremely high IQs are not always the loudest, not always the most confident, not always the ones trying to prove something. Sometimes they are the quiet ones, the observers, the overthinkers, the ones who feel too much and explain too little, the ones who look distant but are actually processing everything, the ones who seem uncertain because they understand complexity, the ones who are not lost, but simply operating at a depth that is difficult to translate. And maybe that is the most interesting part. Extremely high intelligence does not always look like brilliance from the outside. Sometimes it looks like a person sitting quietly, trying to make sense of a world that feels louder, faster, and more layered than most people realize. Not because they are trying to be different, but because their mind simply works differently. And once you understand that, many behaviors stop looking strange. They begin to look like what they really are, the visible signs of a mind built to process more. If this video helped you understand yourself or someone you know, leave a comment with the trait that felt most familiar. And if you enjoy exploring the hidden psychology behind human behavior, the mind, and the way people think, subscribe to the channel. There is always more happening beneath the surface than we realize. See you in the next video.